Welcome to the Edge. I am joined by Delegate Vanessa Atterbeary, an attorney and a member of the Maryland legislature, chair of the powerful Ways and Means Committee. In her role in the House, she sought passage of a bill to legalize iGaming in Maryland. Now, Maryland is a very active state with gaming. It has brick and mortar casinos, it has online sports betting, in-person sports betting, of course, horse racing, the Preakness Stakes at Pimlico. At Pimlico, a major event, obviously. Not many states have iGaming, and Delegate Atterbeary sought to legalize that in Maryland. Let me ask you, first of all, thanks for joining me, Delegate Atterbeary, and congratulations on being the Policymaker of the Year in the American Gambling Awards. Let me ask you, so you got iGaming passed in the House, goes over to the Senate. As everyone knows, a bill has to pass both houses before going to the governor for a signature or veto. Got past the House, but stymied in the Senate? What were the roadblocks in the Senate, Delegate Atterbeary, that blocked that up?
So, first of all, Larry, thank you so much for having me. And I'm very honored to receive the award. So, thank you for having me. Yeah, we passed the bill in the Maryland General Assembly in the House, and it took a lot of work, to be honest. I think some of the concerns in the Senate stem from just, to be honest, misinformation and a lack of education on iGaming. I became incredibly educated on iGaming throughout this process because I'm not a gambler, quite frankly. So I think just we need to educate members of the Senate. There was concern on responsible gaming, which we had in the House, but we were able to move past that. There were concerns about cannibalization of jobs at the brick and mortars, and again, we were able to move past that in the House. So those are some of the main overarching concerns, and then of course, people come from their own personal experiences. People have views, they may or have known somebody who has had an issue gambling, and so they're leery to expand gaming in the state of Maryland. So those are the kind of overarching hurdles that we need to get past in the Senate.
Yeah. Do you plan, Delegate Atterbury, to go back at the next session and take another shot at iGaming? And why is iGaming important for Maryland? Now, in a lot of other states, there are only about a half dozen, as we said, but it's a big revenue generator. It's a big tax-based revenue generator, even more so in most cases in sports betting. Brings in a different a group of bettors who may not like sports betting, for instance. Do you plan on going back with it next session, delegated, and why is it important for Maryland?
So this is an interesting question whether or not I was going to bring the piece of legislation back. I quite honestly wasn't sure, but now I'm aware, and I have a meeting later on related to the budget later on today that Maryland is facing significant budget challenges in the next coming years. And when it comes to education, we need to seek funding for that. And for me, that's what iGaming would do. The way the bill was drafted that I proposed, there was a different bill drafted and proposed in the Senate, but the bill that I put forward, there was dedicated significant funding coming from iGaming going to education in the state of Maryland. So for me, and I think for the state of Maryland, that's why it's significant. And through the education process that I've learned so much about, I think it's important because there's already iGaming happening in the state of Maryland the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, and there are no safety parameters around it. So I think folks who are concerned about safety and responsible gaming, we need to capture that market. We need to legalize it, just as we did cannabis a few years ago in the state of Maryland. Capture it, legalize it, make sure that it's safe, and then get that revenue from it so that we can put that towards education. I'm leaning towards. I will say that I'm leaning towards introducing it again. The bill is has been drafted, and I hear it's sitting. The blue back is sitting on my desk after I finish this interview and head to Annapolis. So there's a very strong chance that it will be introduced again.
I meant to mention, and I apologize when I introduced you, you've also been a huge advocate for families and education, and that's always been a part of your
Thank you.
at the legislature. When you look at it, and you mentioned this, Delegate Atterbury, when you look at some of the pushback from the industry, and I was in Nevada years ago, and there was pushback back there when I worked there. based on a couple things. One, and you mentioned pushback from the brick and mortars. Hey, people won't come in to the brick and mortars. They won't see the shows, Usher, Adele, whoever's performing. They won't eat in the restaurants. They won't buy the t-shirt. They won't spend, they won't stop at the craps table and put some money on the table. So the brick and mortar say you're going to keep people from walking in the door. And some of the dealers associations and unions and people like that say you're going to cost us live dealer jobs. It was interesting. I had a conversation with the Gaming Control Board chairman in Michigan the other day. He said they actually have, in some cases, more live casino jobs with the iGaming apparatus. What's your response, Delegate Atterbury, to those complaints? Cannibalizes brick and mortars, costs live casino jobs.
So what we saw here in Maryland from, I mean, first, thank you to everyone in the industry who came out and one educated me as the process was moving forward, whether you came out in person or on Zoom or over the telephone, and then also those who showed up to testify, whether it was on Zoom virtually or in person. And I think all the studies show that there is cannibalization does not happen. And it shows in the casinos that currently have brick and mortars and that also participate in iGaming, there is no cannibalization. And I think you mentioned earlier, Larry, in this interview, I think the fact that you're bringing in a different type of consumer to iGaming, you're bringing consumers that wouldn't necessarily want to go to the brick and mortar, but then you're also possibly enticing them to come in. For instance, I gave this example at our hearing. I'm not a gambler, but if my significant other participates in iGaming and he gets some promotion, it's like, hey, hon, let's go in, let's have dinner, let's have drinks. I'd be 100% up for that. So I think, in that instance, you're bringing people in and they're still going to come and see Adele. They're still going to come and see Mariah Carey and the comedy shows and all these things. So, in our legislation here in Maryland, we put forth to try to I guess alleviate those fears. We put in, kind of a pool of money, a fund, if you will, that folks could get if they should lose their jobs at the brick and mortar, and that helped in the House to alleviate those fears.
Yeah, I talked to a state senator in New York. He said there can be some online incentives if you use like you're referencing, Delegate Atterbury, where you can have some online incentives to draw people.
Mhm.
So, and do you plan on implementing a live dealership, a live dealer apparatus for online in your legislation?
Yes, so that was built into the legislation too. Live dealers, we were trying to entice folks to have their live dealer studios here, either in their brick and mortar or somewhere else here in the state of Maryland. So that would increase jobs as well.
Thank you very much. Let me sort of transition a little bit just to gaming in general in Maryland. Very active gaming state, again, from horse race, long time traditional horse racing
Mhm.
powerhouse in Maryland, and now with, I think National Harbor may be the one of the most profitable, if not the most, off the Las Vegas Strip. So very active gaming state. Um, what's the state of gaming in Maryland right now? Do you see, other than iGaming, do you see anything else? Well, for instance, there's been a lot of chatter about tax increases on sports betting in other states. Do you see something
Mhm.
like that cropping up in Maryland? Is other than iGaming, is gaming pretty much where it needs to be in Maryland? Or do you see a tax hike coming on sports betting?
I don't see a tax hike coming in sports betting. We just recently implemented sports betting a few years ago. So I don't see us implementing a tax hike in that area. I do see in the next session, there kind of being a push and pull, if you will. This isn't gaming, but lottery is going to try to expand. And certainly, from my perspective, we need to implement iGaming if lottery is going to try to move into that space. So I see a push and pull there. We always have these conversation in Maryland. Is lottery, is that actually gaming? Is it not gaming? So there's definitely those conversations happening. I think the next step for Maryland is to expand gaming, is to implement iGaming so that we're not left behind by, we've got New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Virginia has a lot happening. So, we don't want to get left behind with the states surrounding us participating in iGaming.
Yeah, that's a good point. Of those half dozen states, many are in the Northeast over there, along the Eastern Seaboard,
Hmm.
where you guys are. I know New York,
Hmm.
as I mentioned a moment ago, New York's looking at it. They haven't implemented iGaming yet, but they're looking at it. So you guys are sort of in that part of the country where it's really popping right now. Um, Thank you. So now, real quickly, when you mentioned some changes possibly coming with the lottery, what are some things that are in that basket?
Lottery is looking to expand and go online, which we don't have here in the state of Maryland. You have to actually go into the retail space. So they're looking to take, some version of whether it's just the actual, Powerball or Mega Millions to, scratch offs and all of these things. And having that be online. And so that conversation started last session, and I believe is going to continue next session.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for walking me through that. I really do appreciate that with the iGaming and what's going on with gaming in general in Maryland. Let me tr finally transition one more time, and thank you so much for joining me today. I know as Ways and Means Chair, I don't know if any other lawmaker has a busier schedule than the Ways and Means Chair. Transitioning to, we mentioned different pockets of people being involved in gaming. Clearly, sports betting is one pocket. An an emergence is happening too in the industry with women in gaming. Amy Howe, CEO of FanDuel, is another American Gambling Awards winner, by the way, as you are. Um, what do you see, Delegate Atterbeary, along the lines of women involved in the gaming industry, either from, like Amy Howe, the industry itself, yourself, a lawmaker involved? What do you see in terms of the emergence of women in gaming, and what would you say to women who want to enter the industry, either as inside the industry or like yourself in a lawmaker role, uh, working with the industry for change?
Well, first, congratulations to Amy. She is fantastic and well deserving of the award. So I would say this was a huge educational space and opportunity for me, which I kind of happened upon, quite frankly, and I'm glad I did because now that I feel like I'm in it, I've become passionate about it, because I think it's the right thing to do. And so I would just say for any woman who wants to enter the space, one, I think that is a great opportunity for the gaming industry, whether you're on the industry side, whether you're on the regulation side. It's great to have a woman's voice in that space because I think women are going to be concerned about, counseling and responsible gaming and all of these things and education. And so to have your voice heard in the process of whether you're implementing it or regulating it is critical. And to that end, I would say just become as educated as you possibly can. I was not shy about reaching out to, and I didn't need to because everybody in the industry reached out to me, which I appreciate. But and just sitting down with folks and saying, speak to me one on one. Um, I don't know everything. Teach me. I want to learn, and certainly I have my goals that I wanted to meet in putting in the legislation. But just talk to as many people as you can on different sides of the issue, regulating, policy, implementation, and just hear what everyone has to say and become as educated as possible.
That's a great point. And you reminded me, speaking of that, it's not just gaming, it's sports in general. I know Contessa Brewer of CNBC does a lot and as does CNBC itself with the sports industry itself. Just of course, clearly where you are, the Ravens, the Orioles, and down in so sports itself is just in addition to iGaming and things like that, but sports itself is a booming industry that's a
Mhm.
great industry in addition to gaming. So Delegate Vanessa Atterbeary, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you shedding light on what's happening in Maryland. And I'm going to bother you. I'm going to bother Hunter. I'm going to bother your staff as the session goes on. So
Thank you.
uh, please keep me in touch with what's going on. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, and we're happy to have you bother us.
Okay. And thank you to the audience for joining us too. I'm Larry Henry at Gambling.com. Thank you for joining us on The Edge.